A Touch of Necromancy, Part 2. Lavarious pulled up to the last word, bookstore. The trio had just arrived in Normal, and Lavarious took them straight here. "Why are we at a bookstore?" asked Caliban from behind Lavarious. "Caitlin Green," said Lavarious. "Is she a famous author and her next book just came out?" asked Delilah dryly. "Very funny," said Lavarious. "She's an old friend, someone whose skill set could help with our current assignment." A thief intrigue radiated Delilah's tone. That could be helpful. More like a white hat hacker. She has the skills of a thief, but utilizes them to test high-end security systems. Or she used to, said Lavarious as he stepped out of their blue Honda SUV. Delilah and Caliban followed suit. "So will she be surprised to see you?" asked Caliban. "I called ahead after our last gas station stop," said Lavarious before heading inside. They entered the bookstore and were greeted with a mom-and-pop vibe. Books lined the walls between windows. Some tables were set up with displays, but the building was mostly open. It had a cozy room vibe, with empty side tables and various cushioned seats. Clearly, people were welcome to sit and read. Instrumental music played throughout the store, low and barely audible, but enhancing the atmosphere of calm, while the fresh aroma of coffee wafted throughout the store. "Welcome," said a man around 30, with short brown hair and glasses. "I'm Dakota," gesturing around them, "part owner of this little book haven. Let me know if I can help you find anything." He sat behind a cashier counter and was currently reading Hallow Heart by Elizabeth Heath. "Actually," started Lavarious, "I'm looking for—" Before he could finish, there was a squeal of joy from behind the three of them, and a woman, matching Dakota's age, leapt up and wrapped herself around Lavarious' neck as everyone turned to acknowledge her. Lavarious, caught by surprise, quickly wrapped his arms around her. Delilah and Caliban shared a look. "Cat," said Lavarious. "Lavarious," she responded before they each released their hold on one another, and she fell back to the floor with feline grace and took a step back. "What brings you to Normal?" Lavarious chuckled, clearly nervous. "Well, actually, we're here on assignment and we could use your help." He waved his arm toward Delilah and Caliban. "You're friends," Caitlin exclaimed. "Wonderful to meet you." She shook both their hands. "I'm Caitlin, or Cat if you prefer." "Deed," said Delilah. "Charmed," said Caliban. "Well, get comfortable anywhere. You can tell me what this is about." "I'll grab mugs for coffee, and food will be here shortly," Caitlin said, before heading to the brewing station. Delilah fell into step beside Caitlin. "Are we safe to talk openly here?" she whispered, motioning towards Dakota. Caitlin laughed. "Dakota's my business partner. First with my security business, and now this store." Caitlin shot him a smile. "You can trust him with your life. I know I have." "Understood," said Delilah before returning to her companions and finding a cozy armchair alongside Caliban and across from Lavarious. Caitlin returned in short order with a tray, setting it on a nearby side table and handing out 3 unique mugs. "Very arts and crafts," said Delilah. Caitlin smiled. "The store has a more relaxed theme." She then took a seat herself, holding her own mug. After preparing her coffee with some powdered creamer and sugar, "So, to what exactly do I owe this unexpected visit from my adopted brother?" "Brother?" exclaimed Caliban. "A bit more intimate a connection than a friend, don't you think, Lavarious?" Cat rolled her eyes. "That's Lavarious for you. Some think his lack of sharing and perpetual scowl are dark and mysterious," turning her attention to the other two. "Kind of like the reason why you're here." Delilah smiled. She appreciated Caitlin's subtlety. "We're working for the summer court." Delilah paused for a sip of coffee. "We need to get into the Libary of Eternity." Caitlin laughed. "I'm afraid that's out of my wheelhouse. We have a means of getting in. It's just that we don't know what we'll find once we're in," said Caliban. "And you think I'll be useful?" Caitlin shook her head. "No, thanks. I'm not a fan of going in blind." "It is the Libary of Eternity. I don't think there's much, if any, preliminary information to be found," countered Lavarious. "Got that right." The group turned to see a young man in his mid-20s holding 2 bags of takeout containers. "I ordered 5 club sandwiches," questioned Caitlin. "Yep," Dylan said as he handed one out to everyone, including Dakota. Then took the last one for himself and pulled up a seat. "It was the end of my shift, so I thought what better way to spend my free time than by meeting my future sister-in-law brother." "Future sister-in-law," said Lavarious. "You're getting married? To who?" He directed the second question to Dylan. "My twin sister," said Dylan offhandedly. Caitlin scowled at Dylan. What he would have found out eventually. Dylan said defensively. I'm starting to see why my fiancé and her pet left you behind, said Caitlin. Irene and Caliban didn't leave me behind. They just didn't require my help, said Dylan, and I'm telling Caliban you called him a pet. Caitlin stuck her tongue out at him before saying, I've called him worse. Caliban? Asked Caliban. You know my uncle Caliban? Dylan turned to Caliban and after a moment, I can see the resemblance a little. Yeah, I do. And apparently he is indisposed at the moment, said Delilah. Yep, answered Dylan. He and my twin sister left earlier this week and won't be back until next week. So that leaves us one person down. 2, if we can't convince Kat to join, said Lavarious. We, said Caitlin with a begrudged tone as she waved her hands at the trio, are entering the Libary of Eternity. Caitlin leaned in closer to Dylan. Care to join us? Delilah had a surprised look on her face that she quickly masked, keeping her tone neutral. While I appreciate the sentiment of many hands make light work, the 4 of us should be enough. Caitlin was shaking her head before Delilah was finished. I may be a retired Werecat security analyzer, but I don't actually have 9 lives, stated Caitlin. I have no interest in risking the one I do have. She pointed to Dylan. He's a light arcanist, and a damn good one, specializing in healing like his mother. If we're going in blind, he's our best chance of making it out alive. Dylan was beaming with pride at Caitlin's praise. Caitlin punched him hard in the shoulder. Hey, he cried, don't let it get to your head, said Caitlin. This is more about me not dying before the wedding. If that were to happen, your sister would kill me. Then me, for not saving you, said Dylan. So we're agreed? Asked Caitlin. I feel like I'm under duress here, but yeah, I'm in. Dylan took a bite out of his club sandwich. Caitlin turned back to everyone else. We good? Everyone else nodded. In case you don't make it back, called Dakota from behind the counter. How long before I send out the rescue party? Cute, responded Caitlin as she shoved a fry into her mouth. After getting their rooms at the Oakwood Inn, a mansion that had been renovated into a hotel. The trio picked up Caitlin and Dylan later that evening and headed to Blackstone Manor, home to Mayor Harold Blackstone and First Lady Penelope Blackstone. Apparently, Dylan called in a favor from a previous job and was able to get them an appointment that evening. The 5 of them stood in awe at the opulence surrounding them in the foyer. Lavish decor of art, flowers, tile floor, a grand staircase. It was as if the 5 of them had stepped into a luxury homes magazine of the rich and famous. Welcome, said Penelope as she made her way down the stairs. Wearing an elegant green dress, accentuated with small pieces of onyx jewelry, earrings, a necklace, and a bracelet on her right wrist. Lady Blackstone, said Delilah, thank you for welcoming us into your home and seeing us under such short notice. Penelope laughed, a beautiful lilt to it that resounded around the foyer. Please, Penelope is just fine. She put her arm through Delilah's and led the group into her dining area off to the right. I so rarely get to entertain guests, started Penelope. Even as a retired goddess of agriculture, I still find myself consumed with matters of the supernatural world. Well, started Delilah after clearing her throat, I can't deny that is part of the reason we have sought you out. Again, Penelope laughed. Am hardly offended, Miss Starr. Delilah's eyebrows rose at the mention of her last name. Yes, continued Penelope, am aware of who you and your friends are. Your group's exploits are well known, even by me. Penelope released Delilah's arm and made her way to the head of the dining table. A butler pulled out her seat. Lavarious took care of Delilah's chair. Dylan pulled out Caitlin's chair. Caliban sadly had to deal with his own chair. After everyone found themselves seated, a vegetable soup was presented to the group. Now then, said Penelope after everyone had a moment to settle in and take a few bites, what is it that I can assist you with? Access to the Libary of Eternity, said Lavarious. My, that is quite the request. I can see now why you have acquired some additional assistance, Penelope said, glancing at Caitlin and Dylan sitting adjacent to each other on her right while the trio sat across from them on her left. We have been asked to obtain something, stated Caliban. Well, began Penelope, am more than happy to offer you the access you need to enter the vault, but I will have to ask for a favor in return. Everyone nodded. If there was one thing that held true in the supernatural world, it was that everything had a price, magic and favors especially. Wonderful, said Penelope, as long as that is understood. Then after the meal, I shall provide you with the key. Everyone nodded again. Remember not to lose it. It's not only your only way in, but also your only way out, Penelope warned. Sorry, but why are you just letting us in? Asked Caitlin. It's a vault with very powerful magic. Penelope's smile warmed. The library is another plane of existence, a pocket of chaos. It holds both bad and good magic. She took a sip of wine. We limit access to it, true, but it's more like a vault at a bank. People can make withdrawals whenever. Her chin rose slightly. Those of us that hold the keys and permit it, that is. But the people who wish to take are responsible for finding the item themselves. As they may not survive the process, finished Delilah. Penelope nodded in agreement. Understood, said Caitlin. From there on out, the evening went wonderfully. Penelope was a magnificent hostess, and everyone found themselves enthralled by her stories, and she in turn was enraptured by their tales of adventure. It was just after midnight when the trio found themselves alone outside of the Oakwood Inn. Caitlin and Dylan already dropped off at their homes. The key was in their possession, and the group would be setting off to Normal's, Nightingale Museum of History, in the morning. It's where the entrance to the vault was kept. Well, started Caliban, that was easy. It was then that the temperature notably dropped from a spring chill to a brisk winter bite. Both Delilah and Lavarious gave Caliban the look. Yeah, that was on me, he said, before pulling out 2 of his knives. He took a breath and called forth his inner demon. His skin acquired a red-scaled tint. His muscles felt a surge of hellish might. While not a full-blooded demon, Caliban was granted some benefits from his demonic heritage, but such boons were temporary and would leave him fatigued for a few hours after. Prizraki Uviadayut, Wraith's Withering, commanded Delilah. Her necrotic arcane power radiated into something more deadly and focused. The power slithered down her arms and pooled into her hands. Lavarious, after stripping down, shifted from man to large blonde wolf with darker patches running through his fur that appeared gold within a couple of breaths. Practiced lycanthropes could do so at will, without the influence of the lunar cycle, and with much greater ease than portrayed in stories and movies. Hello, said a rasping voice stepping out from the shadows of the Oakwood Inn. So lovely to meet you. The figure was cowled and hunched, appearing old and frail. No doubt to put the group at ease. If anything, it put them more on edge. What do you want, Winterfey? Asked Caliban. The creature before them wasn't even trying to hide its nature. It actually cackled like a fairy tale witch before pointing a bony finger at Delilah. The key, she turned her palm face up, opening her hand. For your life. I'm afraid we are unable to accommodate your request, said Delilah. Lavarious let out a growl as he caught the scent of other wolves of winter, intelligent but still beasts of nature, at least 4 of them. Plus the crone standing before them didn't present good odds. The crone cast off her cloak, and with it the magical glamour to reveal a decrepited hag. A withered fae that stood easily 8 feet tall. Kill for mommy, she ordered, and 4 white wolves of winter charged the trio, 2 on each side. Lavarious moved first, charging the 2 on his right. The wolves were similar in size and outnumbered him. Lavarious knew he had to focus on taking down one quickly to improve his chances. He caught a glint of metal flash past him, before embedding itself into one of the wolves' right shoulder. It collapsed onto the ground, in pain, but not dead. The sudden loss of its companion gave the other wolf pause. Lavarious, seeing an opening, pressed his advantage and tackled himself on the distracted wolf, clamping his maw around its neck and beginning to crush and jerk his head around, hoping to break its neck. Caliban let his second blade fly true at one of the wolves charging Delilah. This one hit with the hilt first, but caught the wolf squarely in the forehead. It stopped, shaking itself trying to clear the ringing in pain. Caliban, aware of Delilah's aptitude, and not wanting his innate nullifying talent to interfere with her arcane abilities, bent over and removed 2 more cold iron blades strapped to his legs, then charged forward toward the hag. The hag brandished her hand. Fool, feel the cruelty of winter. And then raising her arm into the sky, an earthquake rumble could be heard from below before large stalagmites of ice crystals erupted upward beneath Caliban. Caliban had been fortunate to dodge a few of the spears of icy death, but some had found purchase. Lucky for Caliban, it was magic, and magic couldn't penetrate his demonic skin. Each ice crystal shattered against him into nothingness, fully nulled. The hag's expression of joy shifted to awe, then fear as she realized the demon charging her down wasn't hindered by her spell. The other wolf, not hearing a cry of pain from its companion, charged forward alone. It leaped for Delilah, maw open, ready to interlock any part of her frail human body in its unyielding sharp jaws. Delilah wasn't super fast or strong like her two companions. She posed no special weapons or abilities outside of her arcane power, so she didn't bother to dodge back or defend herself in any way aside from putting up an arm, which the wolf greedily snapped down on. The wolf's very nature was winter itself. She felt immediate frostbite as the beast bit down upon her arm, tearing into flesh and muscle, easily finding purchase in her very bone, which snapped like a twig as the wolf created a vice grip. Delilah didn't scream. Her power numbed the pain. Her power hungered for life. With a sick smile, Delilah took her free hand and placed it not on the wolf but within him, her magic making her hand incorporeal. It was as solid as a ghost, allowing it to pass into the wolf's chest cavity, entangling itself into the beast's very life force, its heart. The power fed. Lavarious had been lucky, he knew that. The first wolf lay dead at his feet. He himself was tired and already feeling the exertion of the fight. The other wolf had been able to pull out the blade in its shoulder. As most fae are not fond of cold iron, the wolf of winter wasn't already healing. A limp was evident with each of its steps as it began to circle Lavarious. It made the mistake of putting too much weight on the paw and briefly lost its footing. Lavarious lunged forward. He wasn't able to get a hold of the wolf's neck, but he did deliver a nasty bite before losing his grip. The other wolf snarled as it bled from its shoulder and neck. Lavarious decided to press the advantage and charge in again. The wolf was able to shift out of the way this time, then retaliated by lunging for Lavarious' hind left leg and biting down hard. Lavarious immediately felt not only the pain of teeth tearing into his leg, but a harsh winter chill so cold his leg felt like it was burning. Lavarious pulled away, but quickly found his hind leg was useless. As a lichen, he was already starting to heal, but such damage would take time, even for a lichen. Lavarious found himself on equal footing with the other wolf now. It occurred to Caliban as his back slammed into the Oakwood Inn's wall that he may have underestimated the hag and her limitations. She may not be able to blast him with magic, but she had one hell of a backhand. He hit with a thud that expelled the air from his lungs before sliding to the ground. A groan escaped from his lips as he slowly started picking himself up, only to be smashed back into the ground as a large tree branch crashed across his back. The hag was standing over him wielding said tree branch like a great club. Had Caliban not been in his demonic form, he would have suffered a greater amount of physical trauma. But even this form had limitations to the amount of abuse it could take. Limits Caliban was reaching. Delilah was no longer bleeding, her wound completely healed. The wolf was dead at her feet. Unfortunately, the beast's spirit was much stronger than anticipated. Delilah, while not exhausted physically, had depleted her arcane power. Without some rest and food, she was basically a dead battery. That's when wolf number 2, no longer stunned, started charging forward. "Well, damn!" Delilah responded before throwing herself into the Honda and locking the doors. The wolf snapped at the window and pawed at the door savagely, but thankfully wasn't making progress breaking in, yet. Anyway, Delilah wasted no time and started the car. Thankful she had kept the spare keys on her, she shifted the SUV into drive and gunned it towards Lavarious, honking madly. Both large wolves took note of her approach and leapt out of the way. Fortunately, the pure white one with the still injured front shoulder wasn't agile enough and was broadsided by the vehicle and sent a few feet back. Giving Lavarious enough time to shift back to human form and jump in the back seat, slamming the door just as Delilah's second wolf closed in, now mauling the backside of the vehicle. Delilah, seizing the opportunity, threw the SUV into reverse and rammed it into the wolf behind them, causing it to go off balance and tumble to the ground. Delilah then shifted back into drive and headed towards Caliban. Caliban had taken 2 more hits. He was pretty sure there was internal bleeding and had ruptured both spleens. Did humans have 2 spleens? It was then he noted through his tittering consciousness 2 bright lights fast approaching. The hag, focused on delivering another blow to the demon spawn, noticed too late and swung widely at the incoming vehicle, just glancing off the roof of the car before she slammed onto the hood. It was after this final battering ram use of the Honda that the car engine gave out and died. "Inside the inn now," ordered Delilah, throwing the driver's side door open. Lavarious jumped out too. His enhanced healing factor finally kicked in enough that he could use his leg at least to hobble on. Both him and Delilah made their way to Caliban, who was able to help pick himself up, but was struggling with walking as the world was starting to spin. It was then that the two remaining injured Fey wolves closed in, and the hag picked herself up off the hood of the car. The gunshot was deafening as it ripped through the air. Delilah's wolf lay on the ground dead, most of its head missing. Everyone turned to the entrance of the Oakwood Inn. Fast approaching was Hilda Hearthstone, a double-pump shotgun in her hands. She was the owner, and she was clearly none too happy about the damage to her yard, her building, and her guests. She cocked the gun again and took aim at the other wolf, but addressed the hag. "You are not welcome here." The hag looked as if she had been slapped. "Leave now and take your mangy mutt with you." Normally, such a demand would be ignored, but Helga owned the house and the land. Fae had laws. They could not go where they were not welcome, not without consequence. The hag dropped the branch. She glared at the trio, her yellow rotted teeth bared at them before she put her fingers to her cracked and dried lips and whistled. The sound pierced the night around them. In a flurry of snow, the two remaining Fae of the Winter Court vanished. Hilda turned toward the trio. "You look like crap. Get inside. I've already called for help." "An ambulance?" asked Delilah as she and Lavarious helped carry and drag Caliban inside the main lobby of the hotel and collapse in the nearest chair. Hilda snorted. "Once I saw what was out there, I called our sheriff's department and advised they bring a healer." The group already had an idea of who the healer was.